Welcome to Let's Talk Property, an informal podcast show all about the UK property and mortgage market. I'm Nizam, and joining me is my co-host Lee. Whether you're a seasoned property investor or just starting to think about buying your first home, this podcast is for you. We'll be discussing a range of topics, including the latest market trends, tips for finding the perfect property, and how to secure the best mortgage deal. So join us as we explore the world of property and help you make informed decisions about your next property purchase. Today, we are going to talk about 5 things you can do to negotiate a better price for your sale or purchase. Lee, before we kick off, how are you? How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well. It'd be very British of me to say the spring is coming. I'm looking forward to it. The weather's changing.
Yes.
It's
Although it was cold last night.
Was you?
Yeah, it's freezing here.
Yeah,
it really dropped.
Yeah. So it's starting to get a bit lighter in the evenings, which I'm pleased about. Nice. I'm not a winter autumn kind of guy. I'm more of a summer.
Yeah, I hear you, mate. I hear you. I'm looking forward to the sun coming out.
Yeah. How are you?
Awesome. Yeah, not too bad. If you see me grabbing at things, there's a little fly buzzing around this room at the minute, which seems to come and go as he pleases. And I think it might look like I'm doing a boy band air grab, but it's me just trying to get this fly out of here.
Not YMCA then, no.
No, yeah, well, it might be. Depends on where it goes.
Brilliant.
Excellent. So shall I sort of dive into it then?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great topic, by the way. I think we're choosing some great topics in these first few episodes. I think 5 things you can do to negotiate a better price for your sale and purchase. So I guess what are those 5 things?
So I guess I found these kind of 5 tips when I was doing some research into what we could cover, and I thought they were going to be really good ones to share with everyone listening or watching. And then I thought we could sort of dissect them a little bit and understand them, and maybe just add some commentary around them, really. So I guess if I start, obviously moving home, it's going to be a really exciting time, but obviously also a stressful time as well. So, some people, when it comes to negotiating, it comes naturally to you. Other people, will be absolutely cringing and probably doing everything they can to not have to negotiate on anything. So yeah, I guess this will help those people that are probably more, looking to avoid negotiating or not even sure how to approach it. These are going to be some, negotiation skills that, if you're a first time buyer, or even if you're looking to sell, if you're looking to move home and you're selling and buying, you're negotiating twice, really. You're negotiating on your sale and your purchase. So I'll dive into them.
Yeah, sorry, so I was going to say it's your biggest commitment, so why would you not feel nervous? It's naturally for everyone to feel nervous, even if you're probably a bit of a pro at negotiating and you've been to car salesmen and sofa shopping. We all know what it's like, but yeah, naturally it's I think everyone does get a bit nervous, but some are better than others, aren't they, at negotiating?
Yeah. It always reminds me of when me and my wife went to Morocco, and you've been to Morocco, haven't you?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, I thought you had. And you go into like the Medina area and like the markets, and everyone's trying to get you in to buy pretty much the same thing. It's all very similar, like clay pottery plates and really nice, beautiful stuff. But yeah, as soon as you're in there, you're negotiating straight away. It's the assumption is made that you are buying something. It's just how much are you buying it for? And it's quite funny. I love it. I love engaging in that. Whereas my wife absolutely hates it. So I'm always having to drag her in, or she's dragging me out, I should say, of those little market stalls.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good place to go and get practice. Not recommending going on holiday to Morocco and get practicing, but that's a good place to start.
You probably shouldn't go in at half the price like you do in Morocco when you come into buying a house, but
only that works.
It's probably regulated a little bit better. Excellent. So the first one on that note is tip number 1 is do your research. So that's the first tip they're giving here. Before entering into negotiations, it's essential to do your research. I think that goes without saying for anything you're negotiating, really. Some of the tips they're showing: look at the prices of similar properties in your area, which we've talked about before. Look at how long they've been on the market. Get a feel for the market in your area that you're looking at buying. That information can give you an idea on what a fair price might be, and what the current demand is like. So we've talked before about whether we're in a buyer's market, seller's market, and how to identify that. Those things will really help you to negotiate and understand the market. You can also use tools like Zoopla, Rightmove, gather information about the property itself, its sales history. And like we said, has it been listed? How long has it been listed with that particular agent? How long has it been on the market? And has it been with another agent previously? Sometimes if people are struggling to sell, of course, then they'll look to switch to another agent. So I guess for me here, I think that's a massive one. Would you agree there, Lee? Or
yeah, I was just going to say, even when I've been looking in the past, and particularly a couple of years ago, was with the property market was booming. Properties were selling left, right, and centre, but there's a few that have been on there quite a while, and you start sort of questioning why. And it could be it's a doer-upper, and there's a lot of room for negotiation, couldn't it? It could be that could be the case. But I agree, if you start seeing a property on there for a little while, I think something that I've learned actually as a buyer is study. Even if you're like 6 months away from buying or a year away from buying, just study your area. Look on Rightmove
absolutely
every few weeks. That property's been on for a year now, and or I quite like it, but it's been on a while. It could mean that there's a lot of room for negotiation. I think it's a great tip. I think just doing your research and understanding what property's been on for a while is a great tip. I was talking to
an estate agent yesterday morning, and she was saying that they went out to someone who was looking to sell their home last summer, and they didn't get the listing, so they didn't choose them to sell their property because another agent had given them a high valuation. So another agent said, okay, we'll sell it for 450, when actually this agent I was talking to said it wasn't any more than 425 maximum. And they were really honest with them and said that. But obviously, as a vendor, you're looking to get the best price. And if someone comes in and says, well, I can sell it higher for you, that is going to be of interest to you. So they decided to go with that agent. They still haven't sold their property. So there's nothing wrong with it. And that property has now been on the market for over 6 months. It's going to look like there might be something wrong with it, when in fact, all that it was is it just wasn't priced accurately. And that agent, no doubt, then started to have those conversations. Oh, shall we bring that price back down to 425? And then you think, well, that's kind of a bit too late to start kind of listing it at the right price when it's already been on the market 3 months, because you're gonna look like something's wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I don't want to delve too much into it. The marketing of the property is really important, isn't it, with the agents as well? So that's really important.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think what you're saying also ties in with our previous episode, doesn't it? In terms of one of our previous episodes with the online tools and things that you can do. Do your research. A lot of not maybe particularly first-time buyers probably don't even know what that means. What do you do? What research do you do? And I think there's 3 tools you mentioned in the previous episode. But when you talked about fair price, I think there's a Zoopla tool you mentioned, wasn't there? Regarding property values and looking to see if you can get a fair price, and looking at what properties have sold within the area in the last year or 6 months or whatever, is always a good place to start. And I guess that's probably what you mean by doing your research. Is
absolutely, yeah. And also, sorry, Lou.
Yeah, go for it.
And also, I guess what I also mean by that as well is ask questions with the estate agent and understand the vendor's position. So whoever is selling that property, get to know what their position is, get a full understanding of what's important to them, and that will help you identify the best way to position yourself as their ideal buyer. So if that seller is saying, actually, you're speaking to the estate agent and they say, look, they probably can move on price. Price isn't the most important thing, but actually what they need to do is they need to be in this property that they're buying in 3 months. Therefore, they need someone that's going to be fully committed and can complete within 3 months. Therefore, you might be able to position yourself and say, well, actually, I'm a first-time buyer. I don't have a property to sell. There's no chain. I'm living with mum and dad, so I don't have to give notice to a tenancy. I've got the money. All those things you can start saying, rather than, okay, well, I'll pay you the best price or I'll pay you more. If you're competing, actually sell the bits of your aspects of your situation that appeal to that particular vendor. And then once you've done that, you then may be able to negotiate a better price. So, I think that is also what I mean by research as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So I think it's about the not necessarily the highest offer, but the quality of offer, isn't it? Most of the time, a lot of people
Absolutely
think it's the highest bidder wins, but actually that's not the case. If the highest bidder's got a chain of 5 properties, but there's a first-time buyer that's bid slightly less, then it could well be that the first-time buyer prefer the first-time buyer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think we've both seen that, haven't we, with our clients? So I'll jump into number 2 anyway. So number 2, second tip they've provided is get your finances in order. Sorry, 1 second. There we go. Get your finances in order. So having your finances in order is crucial when negotiating the purchase or sale of your property. So ensure you have a clear idea of your budget, what you can afford. If you're a buyer, consider getting a mortgage pre-approval, which we are always talking about. And that obviously will then show the seller you're serious and financially able to complete the purchase. If you're a seller, make sure your finances are in order and you're aware of any outstanding fees or mortgages related to the property. So for me, I think the 2 big ones there really, before you start looking at properties, before you start viewing properties, get a mortgage agreement in principle. Make sure you can borrow what you need. Make sure you're comfortable with the monthly payments. Make sure it's within your budget, because otherwise you're wasting your time looking at properties that you are then not going to want to or might not be able to proceed with. And the second one is if you're moving, whether you're buying, but especially if you're selling and buying, understand the fees of moving. So understand the costs of selling, understand the estate agent selling fees, and the cost of buying. So stamp duty, solicitor fees, mortgage fees, survey fees. Understand all that and make sure you've built that into your budget. Because again, that is so important in order to make sure you can move forward when you need to.
Yeah, you don't want any nasty surprises further down the line that you've got a big stamp duty bill when you're kind of right towards the end of the process, are you? And that financial advice bit is really important. You won't want to go start looking at properties that are way out of budget. That tends to be the case.
No, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And as a seller, that gives you more of an understanding of how much you can move on your price. If you know, actually, well, I can take a little bit less and still cover my deposit and all of those fees, then actually what your bottom line is, what you're prepared to go to, where you can still make it work if you need to. And as a buyer, having that agreement in principle, you do hold a little bit of power with that, because you are what they would say a qualified buyer, a financially qualified buyer. And most estate agents will then go back to the seller and say, look, it is an offer we've had, and actually we've seen an agreement in principle with this buyer, so I recommend you take it, or whatever. That's tip number 2. Tip number 3: be prepared to compromise. Always a tough one.
Not many people can do that, can they? That's a really tough one. They always say you got to have one compromise, haven't they? That's a really tough one, I think. What sort of compromises do you see? What sort of compromises are we? So
yes. Some of the concepts, so they've said negotiations are all about compromise. So be prepared to give a little to get a little, as I guess is what a compromise is. For example, as a buyer, you might be able to negotiate a lower price if you're willing to take the property as it is and not request any repairs or improvements to be made. I guess if something comes up on a survey, if something comes up on a survey for a property you're buying, and it may not be anything major, but it might be, a window needs replacing, or, something enough that will cost you a few £1,000s. You might then say to the seller, look, I do really want that done before we buy it. If you don't, you then be able to say, okay, well, actually, if you knock the price down a little bit, or actually, if you are already aware of it before you put an offer forward, you can build that into your offer to say, okay, well, I notice a couple of things need doing. So I won't ask you to do them, but I will expect the price to be reduced a little bit so I can do the work. Now, as a buyer, you know, as a seller, you're not creating much more work. You're kind of coming at it from a fair point of view. As a seller, you know, you may be able to negotiate a higher price or get what you want really for the property if you're willing to be flexible on things like the completion date. So, you know, when you can complete. Again, if you've got a buyer that does need to be in quite quickly and you're willing to do that, that buyer might be willing to pay you a little bit more for the property. Or the other thing is including certain items, so fixtures and fittings within the sale. So things like, you know, I guess, you know, at the minute, log burners massively popular, aren't they? You know, if you're looking to buy a log burner, install it, you're going to pay quite a lot of money. So a lot of people are now including those within the sales, but asking for a little bit more. I know that's what we did when we bought. So yeah, as a seller, that may help you get what you need.
Brilliant. No, there's some great bits there. And I always find flipping it over a little bit in terms of compromise. Location, when looking for a location, isn't it? It's always a compromise. If you're looking in central London, etc. I know these are more around a better price and tips, but I always remember the Kirsty and Phil programs, and they always talk about compromises, don't they? So there's some great tips there. Some great tips there.
Absolutely, it's the toughest bit, but you're right, it needs to be done, especially if you do have a budget. Number 4, keep your emotions in check. Not much I can add to this one. So I think that's a really difficult one, because buying a home or selling your home is such an emotive thing. You know, what they've kind of said on this tip is it's easy to get emotional when it comes to negotiating such a significant purchase or sale, but it's essential to keep your emotions in check, which I think actually is a really, really good tip. Try to stay calm and rational, and don't let your emotions cloud your judgment. And remember, it's essential to keep a clear head to get the best possible deal. So it's easy if you fall in love with a property, as many of us will have done, you are willing to pay whatever it takes, you know, or you're willing to do whatever it takes to get that property, which is great. However, if you then start overpaying for the property, or, you know, if you get a little bit carried away, that might come back to bite you in future when you're looking to get a mortgage or when you're looking to sell. You know, it's not always a good thing to do. So I guess it's knowing when to walk away would be a good one. You know, stay calm, stay rational, look at the market, look at the facts and the figures, what's it really worth, and don't rush into it, would be my tip on that.
That's a really good one. Yeah, we always see it a lot, is expect some hurdles. You know, don't just fall at the first hurdle. It does, you know, expect some hurdles. Sadly, a lot of property purchases aren't all straightforward, and it's quite a common thing, isn't it? And that's why it's just a stressful process, and why we have various professionals helping us, whether it's the agent or mortgage advice or solicitor. There's loads of people in those roles to guide you on that. But that's a really good one, keeping your emotions in check.
Keep your emotions in check. Okay. And number 5 is be aware of your legal rights and obligations. So it's important to have a clear understanding of your legal rights and obligations when negotiating the price and sale of a property. As a buyer, you have the right to a fair and accurate representation of the property, and it's the seller's responsibility to disclose any known defects or issues. As a seller, you also have a legal obligation to disclose any material facts about the property that may affect its value or desirability. And it's also essential to be aware of any legal requirements, such as obtaining an EPC, an energy performance certificate, which we talked about before. Understanding the legal aspects of the transaction can help you negotiate with confidence and avoid any potential legal issues down the line. So what they've said is, if you're unsure about your legal rights and obligations, speak to a solicitor, which is obviously the best thing to do. Speak with a property conveyancer, a property solicitor or conveyancer, which is effectively the same thing. And they'll be able to guide you through and help you understand the legal aspects, what your obligations are, as well as an estate agent. You know, estate agents have to have an understanding of that law. And they have to, of course, abide by the law and guide you. So actually the property is marketed fairly and is a true reflection, and any of those defects and things that they know can impact on desirability or price, they do have to disclose and tell you. And actually, it'll end up coming up in a survey or a legal check most likely anyway. So that kind of says, actually, just be really upfront with it, understand what your obligations are, and just be transparent. And then you're not going to have any issues down the line where you said, well, you told me this, and actually this has happened, or it completely destroys trust. And we've seen it. I think we've both seen that happen before, and people walk away. No matter how close you are, if the trust is gone, I've had buyers and sellers just walk away right at the end because of things like that. Because then you start questioning, what else haven't they told me?
You just finished it off nicely there. What else haven't they told me? If they've not disclosed one thing, it could be many things, couldn't it? So it's quite scary, particularly if you're buying the biggest commitment that you'll ever make, and something further down the line comes up, you start losing. The big thing is trust. So that's a really good point. I think at the end of the day, I always say this list is there to protect you and find and understand these problems that have been disclosed. Admittedly, it's not their job to kind of dig in and look at the property itself, but they're there to kind of understand what information has been disclosed and what's been found. That's a great tip.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
Excellent. Okay. So I guess in conclusion, negotiating the purchase or sale of a property involves more than just price. It is the big takeaway, I think. It's not all about going in, playing hardball, and going as low as you can or as high as you can with the price. Take the time, understand what the other party wants, understand what their situation is, what's important to them, what are they willing to move on, what are they not willing to move on. And make that, having that information and everything else that we've just said will help you make sure you're getting the best overall deal for your sale or your purchase, really.
Yeah, no, some great tips there. Some great tips. What was your favourite one? What's the one thing that you've learned, or what's your favourite tip?
I think I think for me, it is it's doing that research. I know from personal experience, taking the time to ask the right questions. What's the seller's situation? A lot of people just overlook it, don't think it's important, but that's the person you're negotiating with, really, not the agent. Property is what you fall in love with, but actually if you take the time to understand the seller and their situation, what's important to them, what they're willing to negotiate on, like I said, that will help you to seal the deal, really, and especially if you're competing against other buyers. What about you?
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think my one, I think it might be your second point, is explaining your situation, but the highest offer is not always the best offer, the quality of offer. So if you've got first-time buyers listening to this, you're in a really good position because as you say, you've not got a property to sell. So make that clear to the agent. It's not necessarily someone who's putting in the highest offer. It's someone who's putting in the best quality offer. So I think that's my favourite tip for the day is the quality of offer as opposed to the highest bidder generally wins. So no, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Fantastic.
I think we have covered that quite well then. So just a recap before we tie off at the end. So number 1, do your research. Number 2, get your finances in order. Number 3, be prepared to compromise. Number 4, keep your emotions in check. And number 5, be aware of your legal rights and obligations. So hopefully that has helped a couple of people listening.
Brilliant. No, really good episode. Enjoyed doing this one. So thank you everyone for joining us for an episode of Let's Talk Property. We hope you found the discussion on the UK property market informative and helpful. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, feel free to send us a message. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and follow us on social media for updates on future episodes. Until next time, we'll see you in the property market.